You know, I'm Allison Vanilla. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've worked over 20 years in private practice as a psychotherapist. I'm currently still doing that, but I'm also more so doing coaching with women, trying to help them navigate all the many dimensions of being a woman in business. Everybody's hearing me. I see everybody nodding. You're hearing me. Excellent. Today, we're going to be talking about beating burnout. Now, burnout has become quite a trending topic. Everywhere you turn, you're hearing people talking about burnout. But what exactly is burnout? And the World Health Organization has recently decided to put burnout in its ICD-11, which is basically its diagnostic manual for diseases. So it's kind of legitimized burnout, whereas before people would just say it and it sounded kind of trendy. Now, when people say burnout, it's like, oh, it's legit. There's actually a disease out there. What they said is that how burnout is described as, just a feeling of exhaustion, depleted energy. Then there's this other aspect. There are three aspects. The other aspects are there is mental distancing. That's why you see people who they dread coming to work. They don't even want to think about it. They don't want to get there. They don't want to do anything about it while they're on the job. They don't even want to think about it. There's a lot of negativity, and there's a lot of cynicism about their job life. And lastly, there's also an identified lack of productivity, or professional efficacy goes down, way down. So when you're looking at burnout, you're looking at having those three things in place. You're not just looking at having a bad day on the job. You're looking at, again, that physical feeling of the exhaustion. You're looking at the mental fog, or just this inability to. Frida, is there something that you're asking?
We only see the first slide. Is that what you meant?
That's okay. Yeah, I haven't gone further yet. I'm one of the slow movers of the slides. Okay. So, and then you also see the lack of productivity. So emotional, physical, mental. Those are the three components. So when you hear people talking about burnout, that's what you want to hear. It's important to know that even though we've been talking about burnout a lot in the last couple of years, burnout existed way before. And usually when we talk about burnout, we're talking about it in terms of occupational settings. But really, there's a more broader definition of burnout that we rarely use. You could be burned and last out of being a parent. You could be burned out in just sports. You could be burned out in many other aspects of life. But we're hearing a lot more about it in terms of professional life, because that's what's trending. In burnout too, when we're not looking at in the pandemic, when we had all those things going on, you could have looked at people in burnout, and usually they were just a mismatch between a person and an occupation. People like that tend to burn out a lot. Not because the job is terrible, but just because, it's putting a square peg in a round hole. So there are many different ways that you could look at burnout. But for the purposes of this meeting, we're going to talk about it based on what the World Health Organization spoke about. Understanding burnout, you have to understand so many issues related to it. I don't know if you guys have ever been in a job where burnout was almost elevated. I used to work as a child protective service worker, and if you didn't have 40 cases and you weren't running around like a chicken without a head, you were considered a loser and a slacker. It was almost, you could get elevated and promoted by looking like you were super stressed and super burned out. So in some cases, burnout becomes a cultural problem, not an individual problem. This isn't in all situations, but you see that in some careers and some occupation. In those places, the person who's looking burnt out is viewed as someone who's highly productive. Think about somebody on Wall Street, or think about somebody who's like in a MASH unit. They're all running around and they're all stressed, and oh my goodness, that's a high productive person. They're sometimes viewed as the person with the greatest expertise. They're the reason we're all calling Dr. So-and-so, because he's the one who knows the most. And that person could adopt that persona and become a martyr. Without them, the place falls apart. Have you ever been in a company where there's this one person that the whole company rests on? They can't take a day. And it's not just that the company is telling them they can't take the day. They really believe they cannot take a day off because everything will go to hell in a handbasket. So they adopt this martyrdom that's really a cloak on them. And they are viewed as, believe it or not, successful. They are viewed as the trophy, the emblem. This is what it looks like to be successful in this occupation, in this career. You have to have the ulcers, you have to be running around, you have to be, everybody has to be calling your name. You can't say no, you're the one who's working the 18 hours. That gets elevated. So in some ways, burnout can become a social construct. That's a cultural problem. That is not always the case, but you also have to watch for companies where that becomes kind of the corporate culture. And in that you will see there's a different view on burnout. But we do know truly in burnout, there is not high productivity. There is low productivity. Somebody might go around saying that they're producing more, but no, they're just making more noise. And they have lots of health effects that really lets you know that they are in burnout. The connection between burnout and stress is that the stress is not one-time stress, it is chronic stress, okay? Albert Ellis defines stress as this: it's a connection between adversity, beliefs, and emotional and behavioral responses. When we're looking at burnout, we really want to pay attention to that middle piece, the beliefs. Just because you work in a highly stressful job doesn't mean you're doomed to burnout. It's what you believe about that stress that really decides whether you're going to go into burnout or you're going to go into increased energy and creativity. There's there are some people who, when they're under a lot of stress, my goodness, they produce beautiful stuff. They come up with great solutions because there's a looming problem and they're challenged with it. So not all stress produces burnout. Stress, when you're in stress, your body will have a response. It's a clear response. It's a response that says your cortisol levels go up and lots of things go on, and they're not usually happy things. You'll find when people are in an area where there's burnout or a lot of stress, you'll find that there are probably some health issues that are going to be going along with that. So we'll kind of get into that a little bit later on. I like the statistics that are on burnout, and I want to talk a little bit about them to you because I think they're very telling. 42% of women and 35% of men in business say they've experienced burnout in the last year. So it's under 50%, but it's a high level. Even though it's under 50%, notice more women than men. 1 in 3 women say they want to consider downshifting or changing their careers because of workplace burnout. 26% of women find that they are asked to or choose to give emotional support to others in the workplace. So if you're in a workplace setting where there are men and women, it's usually the woman who will take an extra role or position of supporting others under stress in that workplace environment. Women historically are caregivers. And in general, it is the woman who will look around and say, what's happening with Susie? What's happening with Sally? What's happening with Joe? How can I help ease their stress? And women will typically take a back seat. They'll say, okay, I'll take care of me later. Let me take care of these other people first. Now, keep in mind what that means. That means that that is usually not on their job description. So in addition to everything else that's on their job description, if they share a job responsibility with Joe, and they all have the same job description, women will do all that, but in addition, they'll take some degree of personal responsibility for keeping the emotional balance of others in their workplace. That is unpaid, unrecognized, but that is what women in job sites tend to do. And 26% more women do that. That might also, that might give us a little bit of an inkling why 42% of women versus 35% of men say that they're more stressed last year. Last statistic I want to look at is 35 million working mothers in the US. Out of that many, 9.8 million of them say that they're experiencing burnout. Now, I'm not a mathematician, but let me get this right. If it's 9.8 million out of 35 million surveyed, that means 10% would have been 3.5 million, 20% would have been 7 million, So now we're over 20% at 9.8 million. Again, for the mathematicians in there, correct me if I'm wrong. So we're looking at 20% of working mothers in the workplace who say they're experiencing burnout. On this call, I think there are more than 5 of us here. That means that 1 in 5 of us would have been reporting. Yes, we talked about the 26%, and I really like that statistic because I really want us to acknowledge that as women, yes, we may have the same job description as men in certain areas, but we do tend to do more of the caregiving and the nurturing in whatever work environment we find ourselves. And that needs to be taken into consideration in terms of the amount of burnout we experience versus men. Okay, that in addition to the fact that how we have 3rd shifts and 4th shift jobs sometimes, because we may leave a job setting and then we go home to kids, and then we go home to, or maybe even parents, caregiving and things like that. So that's not on your job description, you know, per se, but those are all things that how we naturally take control of and are very much involved in. And then we talked a little bit about the 35 million working mothers, and 9.8% is a little bit over 20% of that. So if there's more than 5 of us here, at least 1 out of 5 of us is experiencing some level of burnout. So these are the places where those statistics are found. Next slide, Sheila. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. This is something I say to women frequently because of that need to warm others and take care of others. It's a wonderful thing, ladies. I thank God we have that as part of our personality and our makeup. However, it doesn't translate well onto the workplace environment. It really doesn't. And that's a place where we need to kind of rein that back a little bit so that how, yes, we could still be caring and nurturing, but we have to remember our colleagues and coworkers are not our kids or our parents. They are other adults fully functioning, hopefully, and they may need to manifest some skills to take care of themselves. We need to go and take care of our jobs. Next slide. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. When we do not pay good attention to what our needs are, we're not loving ourselves. And then we complain others don't love us, you know, but we have to start first. We have to love ourselves by keeping good boundaries in place so that how we do not burn out. Because once we burn out, we can't love people the way we really want to love them with the full degree of energy that is needed for the people that we really care about and that are really important to us. Next slide. So we're going to look at 5 ways to beat burnout here. First one, savoring and being present, relaxation. You've heard this said a lot of times. Just relax, just relax, just relax. I can't tell you the amount of times I've worked with people in my office and we've tried to do some relaxation and some skills with them, and I'll see the tension and the negative energy move from one part of their body to another. You know, we'll do some deep breathing and relaxation, and they'll relax their upper body, and the low part of their body will curl up like a little pretzel and tense. So stress and tension moves all over the body. So you have to learn some ways to force your body into relaxation. You think to yourself, why would anybody be forced to be relaxed? Well, when you've lost the art of relaxation, you have to relearn it. And one of the ways is just being present, learning how to just engage your 5 senses in a way that you're just aware. I love this picture here of this person on the hammock. You know, think about it. Be there with that person. Tell me, what are you experiencing, and use the 5 senses. Anybody. I know I can't see everybody all at one time here. Let me just try and see if I can open up this screen so I can see everybody. Nope, I can't see everybody.
The wind blowing.
Wind blowing, definitely.
Oh,
what
okay.
else? Yeah. What else can you be experiencing?
The sun touching your skin.
Sun touching your skin, definitely.
The smell of the salt water.
The water, the smell of the water, right? We could smell the salt, right? The spray of the salt.
All of this at the beach. All of it.
I'm sorry, there's a noise I'm not hearing. Okay.
All of this at the beach. All of those right there. That's my point.
All of it, yeah. So, but that's the idea, guys. You have to not just be at the beach. You have to, when you get there or wherever you go, you have to be able to engage touch, hearing, sight, taste, smell, engage all your 5 senses just to be present. Okay, once you're present, you're not anyplace else. You know, we've kind of mastered the art of being 10 million places at once via our phones and so many different things. So that's not savoring, that's not relaxation. I was giving somebody an example of savoring the other day, and I said, you know, I love tiramisu. If I take a little spoonful of tiramisu, I go into full savoring mode. You know, I'm tasting the bitter of the coffee. I'm tasting the, you know, the creaminess of the mascarpone. I'm tasting everything, and I am in a full sensation moment, all just in my mouth right then and there. But it is a wonderful, wonderful moment. So learn to enjoy and savor. Your social connections and supports. Now, we could be introverts or extroverts. It doesn't matter. We still need a certain degree of social connections to be healthy and happy. When you're in social connections, you have to make sure they're positive connections. When you're on a job site where people are upset and cynical and they don't want to be there, that's not the social connection you want to be immersed in, because that's not going to help you deal with the stress that promotes burnout. So you want to be around positive people. So sometimes you have to be outside of the work environment, you know, and when you're outside of the work environment, please don't use the time to just complain about the work environment, because people will come around you and they will tell you, oh yeah, your job sucks. Oh, that's horrible. I couldn't do that. This is, you don't want that. You want to be around positive people. So I say connect to your faith community if you have one, or connect to causes that you're passionate about. Move your brain away from all the things that are disturbing you about the situation that's promoting all the stress and promoting the burnout. Definitely look for those kind of supports. It's been said a million times, and I'll say it one more time. You have to take care of this body. This is the only body you've been given. Take care of it. Your health and fitness is important. I look at the 4 dimensions of care in terms of health: physical, social, spiritual, and psychological. If you pay attention to each one of those dimensions and you do something every day to bring health to those areas, I think you're well on the way to preventing burnout. Definitely you want to eat healthy. We talked a little bit about food earlier, and it doesn't look the same for everybody, and I realize that, but you want to make sure that what you are doing it's intentional, and you know that it's going to promote health to some degree in your body. You definitely want to look at your 7 hours of sleep, because you need to reboot. You need your body to be able to heal. There's a lot of damage that's being done to your body all day long, and that 7 hours of sleep helps you with that. Many times when you're under a lot of stress, diet goes fast because you're too busy on the job. You're going to grab a quick meal. You're barely going to eat it, barely going to digest it, and it's usually the wrong kind of food. And then sleep, you're up all night worrying, or you're up working late, and then you're up early because you got to get an early jump on the day. All this mindset messes with the actual physical things that you're doing, and it's not promoting health. And then you do it long term. It's not even like one night or one day, or just because you've got a project this week. No sooner finish one project, but you're into the next, and the same pattern repeats again. Something as simple as keeping hydrated. I'm always with my water. I sit on my desk every morning when I get to work. I fill my water and I bring it into my office with me, and I fill it up 3-4 times a day. Keep hydrated, ladies. It really helps. Then at least 20 minutes of aerobic activity daily. And I don't take any excuses, because people say, well, I'm too busy to get out to do the gym. I can't afford the gym. It's too hot out. You name the excuses, I've heard it. Well, I've got my hula hoop. I'm in my office. I will do a hula hoop for a few minutes in between clients. I've got my jump rope, and I will jump in my office. And sometimes I'll jump in my office while I'm on a webinar. They don't see me. I put on the little screensaver and I'm jumping a hula hoop. I'm muted and my video is off, and I'm getting my exercise even while I'm listening to whatever is going on. Ladies, you have to find ways to protect your health. You have to find ways to improve your health. No excuses. No excuses. It can be done. Think of those 4 dimensions: physical, social, spiritual, and psychological. Every day, ask yourself, What have I done to help myself? Embrace creativity and play. I am a strong proponent of play. Did I show you the hula hoop? Did I tell you about the jump rope? Play, enjoy. There's this verse in scripture that says, laughter doeth good like a medicine. It is a medicine, lady. When you bring more oxygen into your body, it heals you from the inside out. Laughter is good. Have an adult coloring book. It moves your brain away from the things that are stressing you. If you don't have one, keep one on your desk. I keep my colored pencils nearby. Oh, I'm trying to see where my colored pencils and my adult coloring book. And sometimes if I'm just, I'm stuck with something, I'm trying to write something, my brain can't function, I'll pull it out and I'll just color just a little corner of the butterfly or just a little piece of something. You don't have to do the whole thing in one day. It's not a destination thing. It's about a journey thing. It's just about letting your mind rest a little bit. Music, dancing, art, journaling, writing, or just being silly. All those things are ways to proactively bring back health to situations that are causing burnout. Once you are burned out, ladies, it's not about doing one thing like doing a spa day or getting your nails done. Once you're burned out, it takes time to heal. People say, well, I went to the spa, I've addressed my burnout. No, it took you a while to burn out. It takes you a while to restart that flame in your life that you could feel healthy about. So remember, you have to find these things and then do them with some degree of consistency. Not necessarily the same thing every day, but this has to be part of your health routine. This is my self-care wheel. I didn't design it. I found it from someplace years ago, but I love it because it has so many wonderful ideas in it. If you want me to send you a copy of it, I'm happy to send that to you. But it addresses the physical, psychological, emotional, spiritual, professional. What is it? It takes you it takes a while to burn out, Jacqueline. Thank you. I see that. Yeah, and personal. So it has so many little ideas in there, and I love it because sometimes I'll look at something, I'll say, oh, I didn't think about that. I could try that. So have a plan that works for you. The plan that works for me may not work for you, and it is okay. But find a plan. Find a plan because you're not immune to burnout. Anybody who does anything long-term and it has any degree of stress related to it. Again, not all stress is bad. I mean, if it's energizing stress, woohoo, go you. But if you know it's not energizing stress and it's draining you, watch out. You're going to start getting cynical about things. You're going to get to the point where you feel it's hopeless and nothing. By the time people start doing things to help you, your mindset is so negative. Oh, it's too little, too late. It cannot be done. That is the mindset that says you are well on your way or fully in burnout. And again, once you get there, probably your body is experiencing some other symptoms too. And it's not just up here, it's pervasive, it's gone right through your body. Okay, so in summary, I want you to focus on the things you control. The things we've just talked about are things you can control. You could control your savoring, you could control being able to find people who are going to be positive, who are going to input the healthy things in your life. I mean, you wouldn't go to somebody's house and they're saying to you, I'm going to feed you poison today, come on over. Would you go? You'd be like, no, I don't feel like I want a dose of poison. You're going to go to people who are going to be healthy for you and find those people and, attach yourself with them. Change your mindset towards stress. Again, if you start believing that all stress is negative, then you're going to respond like if all stress is negative. Recognize there's some stress that really just energizes you. It's a challenge. You like it. It's difficult, but you can't wait to get to the other side of it because you have a positive expectation. You have some hope. Multitasking, again, is a myth. The more screens you have open on your computer, what happens? The slower your computer runs. So the more things you're trying to juggle, why do you think that you're going to be like super effective in all of them? You're not. You're not superwoman. Get the S off your chest. You are not superwoman. You have to stop multitasking. And if you even do that, take little things off your plate. Even if you take them off and say, I'm going to delay that for another time, you're probably going to be helping yourself not get into burnout. All right? Some things can be delayed. Not everything is urgent. Just because somebody tells you something is urgent, Don't believe everybody. Some things are, but many things aren't. Pick and choose the things you're going to do. Put some things off to another day. Multitasking is a myth. Learn to say no, definitely, Karen. All right, so again, learn to savor and relax and engage in meaningful self-care. If meaningful self-care for you is a day at the spa and getting your nails done, go you. But if that's not what it is, find out what it is. It may just be a nice cup of coffee and a Netflix movie. I don't care. Whatever it is, no judgment here. Find what's meaningful for you and make sure you engage in it, and engage in it without guilt. Again, we're not talking about anything illegal. Don't tell me for this, but do something positive and healthy for yourself. And meaningful self-care. Take care of yourself. Our next screen, and I think that's our last screen. All right, ladies, and I think that's it. That's all I have for you. I'm open to questions.
I want to say I love how dynamic you are and how dynamic you make your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
I
After that hitch, I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. I take this as an opportunity also to invite you to visit my community, where you will find more topics of interest and content, all geared to help you have a healthier and happier professional and personal life.